Welcome to Praise, Prayer and Preaching with the Reverend Dr. Rick Dacey, Senior Minister, Wesley Congregational Life.
You know, as I look ahead to 2015 and what's in store for us as the congregational life of Wesley Mission, I am filled with hope. I'm filled with hope in part because of the people that I'm privileged to minister alongside. We have some extraordinary, gifted, passionate, and committed ministers, pastors, chaplains, who together, we have committed together to strengthening the spiritual heart of Wesley Mission to make him known. And I think that's something that we share in together as the congregations of Wesley Mission. What a great privilege it is for all of us to be part of this whole organization that has earned the trust of so many people in the wider community through our acts of compassion and care exercised in the name of Jesus Christ. As I look ahead to 2015 for Wesley Mission, I see a year of stepping out in faith for our congregations, for our congregational life as a whole. You know, our Easter mission is gathering momentum as we prepare to open up further the amazing spirit that we experienced in last year's Easter mission. As part of that long tradition of getting out in the community of saying, you know, Easter is not about a show bags. Easter is about Christ. Christ crucified. Christ risen. And we have a message to share, a message of hope, and we're going to be involved in that together as congregations. We'll be hearing a lot more about that in weeks to come, about how the congregations are getting involved in Easter Mission this year. It's not just going to be things that you're going to be informed about, it's going to be things that you're invited to take part in. You're going to be part of making these things happen, and ultimately, all of this is kite flying stuff. We're going to do a lot of running, but it's really only going to take off as the Spirit puts the wind into the sail. That's when we're going to see what's happening. We stand back and we say, we can't make it do that. But before that, we're going to be doing some running down the beach. You know, there's so many other things. Let me tell you one other thing that you're going to see happen this year, and that is Wesley Connect. Food and care ministry is moving from level 3 down to the ground floor. That's really important because that's where we interface with the city at our front doorstep. We're going to see that influx of people coming in our doors. As Keith was talking about, there's an important connection that we make with those people, not just as staff, but as the congregations of Wesley Mission. Our everyday mission is stepping out in faith just as much as the big events. We're raising up communities of disciples who are growing together in faith while they connect with the lives of people who are in need, our neighbors who are in need. So why are we stepping out in faith? There's a lot of reasonable reasons why we shouldn't. There's a lot of reasonable reasons why we shouldn't be bothered with all this, or why we should just check out of all this. I mean, think of the risks. Think of all the things that could go wrong. Think of the what ifs. Let me tell you, I do. They keep me awake at night. They get me up early in the morning. I think about all these what ifs, and there's so many reasonable reasons not to push all these things forward, not to invest ourselves in them. I mean, what if, just take Wesley Connect, for example. What if when we come down to the ground floor and become the face of Wesley Mission, what if we're overwhelmed with the need? What if there are more people who come than we have food to offer? What if they come with problems that we're not able to address? What if we don't have enough people who feel a calling to step up and to connect with these people? What if? What if? You know, there are 1,000 risks to all this stepping out. And the sensible thing to do, I'm not very sensible apparently, but the sensible thing to do would be to scale back, to trim our sails, until we've got a manageable scale to our ministry, until we can control it and manage it and keep it under our control. Well, why are we not doing that? Why are we stepping out in faith this year? Because Jesus steps out. In the first chapter of Mark's gospel, we heard a man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." And then we hear this. Jesus was indignant. Did that surprise you? Jesus was indignant. I mean, that's not the reaction we expect from Jesus, is it? A man comes up and pleads to be made clean, and Jesus is indignant? You know, there's some uncertainty in the ancient manuscripts about this word. This has caused trouble for centuries. This one little word in Mark. Many say that Jesus was moved by compassion, but the NIV goes with indignant. And I think it's a pretty compelling reading. It's compelling because it's not what we would expect from Jesus. It's not something someone would read into what Jesus has said. Why would he be indignant? Is it because this man is putting Jesus on the spot? Because he surely is. He's putting Jesus on the spot. If Jesus engages with this man, he puts his personal safety at risk. What's more, Jesus knows that if he makes this leper clean, he is putting the efficiency and the manageability of his whole ministry at risk. You know what's going to happen when word about this gets out. Jesus knows what's going to happen. You know, up until this point, he's able to go about his ministry in a pretty planned way. He knows he can go from this town to this town. He can unfold the good news and move on to the next town. But if word of this gets out, if he makes this man clean, he knows that he's not going to be able to find peace anywhere. He knows that even if he goes off into the wilderness, people are going to go and find him there. He knows the risk he's taking. And now, I wonder if that's why Jesus is indignant. If so, if that's a reason, if he's realizing, man, this guy's putting me on the spot, and that's why he's indignant, well, then he has a very curious reaction to the man, if that's the reason why he's indignant. Because what he does, watch what he does, he reaches out his hand and he touches him. I am willing, Jesus says. Be made clean. I witness Jesus' personal interaction here, and I can't see that he is indignant with this leper kneeling before him. He's not angry at the man. He is angry that the man is in this place. He is angry at the situation. He is indignant with the religious society that has cast this man out, that has made him unclean. You know, it's not just a sense of feeling sorry for this poor guy that motivates Jesus here. No, he has got a sense of compassion that is mixed with a righteous anger. He is indignant that this man kneeling at his feet has no one to turn to. He is indignant that this man is utterly cut off. In the name of God, this man has been stripped of his humanity, and Jesus is indignant. Have you ever been cut off? Have you ever been an outsider? Have you ever felt isolated, shut out? I have, to some extent, at different times in my life. Never anything like the leper in this story. But I know what it is to be an outcast. I know that it hurts. It hurts to be an outsider, not by your own choice because you've chosen to go outside, but because others have decided to keep you out. It hurts to be an outsider. Most of us in this room, I think, have at some point or in some ways felt that sting of being made an outsider, in a sense, unclean. It hurts. Some of us in this room know that very deeply in our lives. Maybe we've felt that pain ourselves, and if you're paying attention, you've seen it in the eyes of others. Jesus saw it in the eyes of this man. He looked him in the eye. The leper is the ultimate outsider. In the culture of Jesus' day, lepers were considered unclean. You know what it means to be unclean. To be labeled unclean means that you are cut off from everyone. It means no one will talk to you. No one will go near you. No one will have anything to do with you. They know that if they associate with you, they risk becoming unclean. They risk being labeled an outsider. I think that's the sort of thing that most people aren't willing to risk. Most people don't want to take that step out. The child who doesn't fit in at school, who gets bullied and teased, no one wants to sit with him at lunch. No one wants to sit with him at lunch because the friend of the outsider risks becoming an outsider. More insidiously, we looked at last year the response to those who were going to serve in Western Africa, to serve those who were suffering with Ebola, many of those serving in the name of Christ. When they came back to America, the sign was hung out, "You're not welcome here." These doctors, nurses, missionaries who put their own life on the line, risking their lives to be the hands of compassion for people in desperate need, and the land of the free and the home of the brave put the sign out, "You're not welcome here." We had a tweet from Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who said, "The U.S. cannot allow Ebola-infected people back. People that go to faraway places to help out are great, but must suffer the consequences." And while that's an extreme expression, it is one that gripped my homeland and other Western countries. Ebola is still causing suffering. It's still causing great misery. But the outsiders are out. And so it's dropped down in the headlines. Can you imagine what it would be like to be absolutely isolated, cut off, shut out, because good religious people consider you to be unclean? Unclean. Cut off not only from friends and family and neighbors and society, but cut off from God. Can you imagine? Unclean. And notice what this leper asks Jesus. He doesn't ask to be cured. The leper doesn't ask to be cured of this terrible, hideous, horrendous disease. He doesn't ask to be made well. He asks to be made clean, to be restored to relationship with other human beings and with God. It's as if this debilitating physical illness is of remote secondary concern to him. So painful is that experience of being cut off, being pushed to the outside. He says to Jesus, if you choose, you can make me clean. As a respectable religious teacher, Jesus, he has no business talking to a leper. To be seen speaking with the unclean outsider is to take a real risk, is really stepping out. And so it's really striking that when this leper comes up to him and kneels before Jesus, Jesus not only talks with him, but he touches him. This is shocking. This is offensive behavior. For anyone in that culture, but especially for a religious teacher like Jesus, and here right off the bat, before his ministry really has even gotten rolling, Jesus has done irreparable damage to his reputation. The friend of the outsider risks becoming an outsider. Jesus stretched out his hand. And he touched him and he said, I do choose. Be made clean. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what that moment was to the man who was affected with leprosy? It's the first time in a long time, maybe years, since anyone, perhaps except another leper, since anyone has spoken with him, looked him in the eye as a child of God and talked to him. And here Jesus is touching him, restoring him, renewing him. Be made clean. Jesus tells the leper, please don't tell anybody about this. This is no faith healer's wonder cure to draw a crowd. Now, Jesus has restored this man. He wants him to re-enter the community the right way, the accepted way according to the law of Moses. But Mark tells us that the man, he went out and he began to proclaim it freely, to spread the word. He told everybody who would listen. He couldn't not tell them. How could he not tell them? He just couldn't keep something like that to himself. This is the very beginning of Jesus' ministry, and it sets the tone. It sets the tone for him. It sets the tone for us. I mean, look at the people who Jesus treats with compassion and dignity throughout his ministry. Most of them are outsiders, lepers, tax collectors, prostitutes, and foreigners. And Jesus is indignant that they're outsiders. Those whom society pushes to the margins, God puts at the center. So with each one that he speaks to, each one that he touches, each one whom he welcomes or eats with, Jesus risks again and again becoming an outsider himself. Each time he steps out, he risks becoming an outsider himself. Again and again, he sees the risks and he chooses the path of compassion. Again and again, he stands with the outsider. He risks becoming an outsider. And so, in the end, he was executed outside the city, executed among the criminals. A message to all the insiders. You don't want this to happen to you, do you? So what does that mean for me and you, for Wesley congregational life as we head into this new year together? Well, it's clear enough what Jesus calls us to do. He calls us to do what he does. He calls us to follow. But what if we can't? What if, like the religious folk of Jesus' time, we're convinced that the outsiders need to remain outside? Or what if we just aren't prepared to take the risk of becoming outsiders ourselves? What if our fear, our misunderstanding leads us to turn away from the outsider? Or worse, what if we try to consolidate our insider status by pushing the outsider further out? What do we do when we just aren't able or we're just not ready to risk following Jesus' example? What do we do? Well, I think we have two choices. We can tell Jesus to go away. You know, people do that in the Gospels. Whole villages tell him to go away, leave us alone. We can give up any pretense that we actually mean to follow him, or we can just tell him, you know what, we'll meet up with you when it suits us. I don't sense a tremendous energy for that response in the room tonight. And if that's not going to be our response, then our alternative is like this man, to fall at his feet. To fall at his feet. To confess that by keeping the outsiders out, we become outsiders before God. And we can pray for transformation. If you choose, you can make me clean. What would happen in our lives if Jesus were to look us in the eye with compassion and forgiveness? What would happen if Jesus were to reach out his hand and to touch us and say, I do choose? I don't know about you, but I couldn't keep that to myself. And people who experience the love of Christ in us and through us, they aren't going to be able to keep that to themselves either. The good news is already going viral in our neighborhood. You know, a couple of years ago, we stopped giving money to people who come to us for help. The truth is, giving money is the easiest thing that we can do, especially for a minister. Because people give money, and I can give their money to somebody, and then I get all kinds of God bless yous. It's the easiest thing we could do. Well, we stopped doing that. And at the same time, we committed to giving more of our time, more of ourselves to the people who come to us. We sit down over a cuppa or listen to people's stories. We work to earn people's trust and build a real relationship. Yeah, I was marveling at it this week. I saw one of our Wesley Connect disciples engaged in conversation with one of our guests. And it wasn't like watching a charity transaction. It was like watching the beginning of a friendship. This woman wasn't looking for a handout. She was looking for a friend. And she's not alone. Since we stopped giving out money, we continue to meet people's material needs where we can and connect them with the needs that they need to have met. But since we stopped giving out money, we have seen more and more people come to connect with us as a church, month after month. And again, there was a guy who was down at our Edward Eager Lodge. And he came in to Wesley Connect just a couple of weeks ago. And he was looking for some shaving supplies. And Lucy, God bless her, Lucy said, well, we've got plenty of shaving supplies. She gave him some surplus. She gave him 6 shaving kits. And this man went back to the lodge, and he was Santa Claus. He had his shaving kit, which he needed, but he also gave it to his mates. And what an enormously wonderful feeling that was for him to be part of sharing what we are blessed to share with one another. And he came back just this week, and he was overflowing with gratitude. He was overflowing with gratitude that he was able to be part not of just receiving, but of giving, of bearing blessing. And this big burly man, a man who had no faith background, he shared with Lucy that he's getting his own place. And he let her lead him in prayer. It's the kind of thing that has been part of our Wesley Mission story from the very beginning. And this year we're going to see the good news go viral once again across the city of Sydney. Over the next year, we'll be stepping out in all kinds of ways, connecting with the people of this city, young and old, rich and poor, people of every background. Word's going to get out about us. Word's going to get out about what God is doing in and through us at Wesley Mission. And we need to be ready for that. We need to be ready for those risks. Are you ready for that? I'm not. I'm not ready for it. But thank God Jesus is, and Jesus is with us, and he is the one who will bring the change in us. He is the one who will bring change in this city. He is the one who will bring change throughout his so loved world, because he is about the work of making all things new. And by his grace and the power of the Spirit, we share the privilege in taking part in that. And so, let's share together in prayer.